Second, we know, not only from research in psychology, but simple empirical evidence in the history of science, that the lowest form of evidence that exists in this world is eyewitness testimony.
Oh my God, okay. Yes, you're right, okay? Eyewitness testimonies can be somewhat misleading, okay? But what happens if that testimony was a flashbulb-like event? What happened if it was more like a 9/11 sighting, something so shocking, so big, that there's hardly any mistaking? And then what happens if that testimony came from somebody who was perhaps a previous governor? And then what happens if that governor also happened to be a previous fighter, jet fighter? Meaning he is probably the most credible eyewitness possible because he is the one who understands what flies up above, including the high technologies, the ones that our governments are working on. So what happens then? Because those eyewitnesses do exist. Let's listen.
This event called Lights Over Phoenix. What did you see?
Well, I saw a huge craft just kind of come right over Squaw Peak. That was, it was just breathtaking. Questionably, it was a UFO, which means unidentified flying object.
That doesn't mean we're being visited.
Well, it's nothing like anything I've ever seen.
And you're an Air Force guy.
Yeah, and a pilot. Got a lot of hours flying. So it was pretty breathtaking.
This is her eyewitness testimony. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not scientifically useful. In science, even if you have something less controversial than a flying saucer, if you come into my lab and you say, you got to believe me, I saw it, and you're one of my fellow scientists, I say, go back, go home. Go back until you have some other kind of evidence that's not just you saw it. Okay? Because human perception system is rife with all ways of getting it wrong. Okay?
How big?
Bigger than anything I've ever seen in the sky.
Like an aircraft carrier in the sky?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And it was hard to define because of the light in terms of the size, but it was absolutely silent and had sort of eerie embedded lights, and so that's what I saw, and I wasn't expecting to see anything because I was looking.
Maybe you did see visitors from another part of the galaxy. I need more than your eyewitness testimony, and in modern times, I need more than your photograph.
So you ask, where is the evidence? See, the thing that bothers me is people are looking at up there, in the skies for the evidence, when perhaps the evidence is all around you already, and this is where I know I'm not going to get the skeptic with this argument right away, but for those who are kind of tiptoeing in the possibility, let me at least show you guys this video so you can at least entertain the possibility that evidence might be already here.
He unfolded a map saying,
This strip that stretches from Easter Island to Giza is actually part of a 25,000-mile-long circle.
all the length of our equator. This is a roughly 100-kilometer wide circle, and it covers, as you're about to see, many sites around the globe. It goes through Peru and the Paracas Chandelier, the Nazca Tracks, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu, Cusco, and Sacsayhuaman. Then still in Peru, through the site of the Paratori Pyramids. On the African continent, it reaches Mali and its enigmatic Dogon lands, which knew the stars Sirius B and C way before any astronomers, passes through Algeria and the Tassili Niger with his big painted Martian god. In Egypt, it goes through the Siwa Oasis and its Zeus Ammon Temple, one of the most sacred of the antique world, then through the Giza Pyramids. It keeps going through Petra in Jordan, Ur in Iraq, where Abraham was born, Persepolis in Iran, Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, with its riding so close to Easter Islands and its odd radioactive skeletons, then through sites that have always been known as God's dwelling places, Khajuaro in India, Phrae in Burma, Sukhothai in Thailand, Angkor Wat and Previer in Cambodia, and other important sites lost along the way from the ancient world and history, to end with the most isolated spot on Earth, Easter Island.
Here's what I recommend. Next time you're abducted, because I'm ready for this. I'm ready, okay? I get abducted, I'm ready, okay? So you're there, you're like on the slab, because they always do like the sex experiments on you, on the flying saucer. So there you are, and they're poking at you. Here's what you do. You ready? You tell the alien, you're gonna be alien for this, right? So you're poking me, all right? So then I say,
finally, I'm on this side of the equation.
okay, so I say, hey, look over there. And then he looks over there, you quickly like snatch something off the shelf, put it in a pocket, and then lay back. All right? Then you're done, you come back, and you say, look what I got. Okay, I like stole the ashtray off the shelf of the flying saucer. And anything you pull off of a flying saucer that crossed the galaxy is gonna be interesting, okay?
Once again, this is going to be one of those things that I know most skeptics are not going to be swooned over. They're not going to be convinced by this. But what happens if they did take something back with them? And what happens if these abduction victims didn't just take something back with them, but what happens if the symptoms related to that taking back, meaning perhaps they had implants, what happens if we predicted those symptoms? Some of the like hand marks that he's getting. And I've had friends who've shown me images of their marks, and they're always like either a triangle, like a perfect triangle, a perfect square, or a perfect circle. A female alien being doing procedures that is separate from the other aliens. I mean, come on, guys. So, I don't know, man. I think your version of your evidence, Mr. Tyson, and my version are just, we have different evidence. And I don't know if you're aware of the evidence that I'm dealing with, or at least the independent confirmations like the one I just showed, if you're aware of that. But we haven't finished listening to this video. So let's listen what else Mr. Tyson has to say.
Orographic clouds that form above huge mountains that are circular. And they're above a tall mountain, which means wherever you are, the sun can set for you before it has set for the cloud, darkening the skies, yet the cloud is now illuminated by sunset colors, which are what? Red, yellow, orange, and it's circular. There have been reports of hovering circular UFOs with light beams on them because people are looking at this cloud formation on top of mountains.
Okay, I love this because to think that UFOs are around because people are looking at clouds, I mean, this honestly reminds me of the like swamp gas theory, where the theory is so ridiculous that it almost overreaches to the point where it becomes more like impractical than the idea of aliens itself. Because you got to think about this. My opinion, okay, and it's just my opinion, is that the reason why these crafts are round is because they're not utilizing the aerodynamic principles that we utilize with our airplanes. And perhaps they have to utilize a different type of property. Perhaps they're utilizing quantum isolation. Because isn't that what abductees claim? Are they saying that these aliens are just floating through the walls? Isn't that what the guy who worked at the Pentagon, Mr. Elizondo, isn't that what he himself implied? Listen to what Mr. Elizondo said in this interview. You learn in high school physics that two things can't occupy the same place at the same time. And usually that's true until you get to quantum level. General relativity, now he's telling us what it's like right now, okay guys, listen here. General relativity is still correct, but we now know that there are some nuances. You mean quantum mechanics? So perhaps it being round is more a product of your lack of knowledge of the processes to which these aliens are utilizing to travel. They are obviously based on everybody's account, how they move, the speeds at which they move, they're obviously not using the same properties that we are. You know, funny thing is, mathematically, we can get to another star very quickly. It's just that physically, with our physics, we haven't figured out how to do it. Though NASA is working on a warp drive, so this stuff is happening. So I don't know why he would completely discount this possibility, but you know, that's a skeptic for you, I guess. And then just to add to that, right, and we kind of went over this point, why would people hundreds of years ago report on the same rounded thing? Like what, do you think that 300 years ago, the Renaissance painters decided to just put dinner plates in the sky, and now people are like having some crazy fantasy of deciding to imagine dinner plates as the vehicle of choice for gray-looking aliens, you know, or as the Hopi Indians would call them, ant people, or lizard-faced people, or frog-faced people, as the Dogon tribe would call it. You know, just saying, like, I don't think that that's just a coincidence. I don't think that's part of some kind of like Freudian or some kind of Carl Jung type like mind mechanism that we see dinner plates in the skies. I mean, think about that. It just doesn't make sense. So just moving forward, I just wanted to finish this off with Tyson's belief and how humanity evolved through evolution and through the processes that created the star itself. So just let's listen in for a second.
That the atoms and molecules in your body are traceable to the crucibles in the centers of stars that manufactured these elements over its lifespan, when unstable, on death, exploding its enriched guts across the galaxy, scattering it into gas clouds that would ultimately collapse and make a star and have the right ingredients to make planets and people. Which means we are part of this universe. As I've said many times, and this goes back, not only are we in the universe is in us. That is a profound concept. And it was, I think it's the greatest gift that astrophysics gave culture in the 20th century.
And so what really amazed me is, you know, as logical as Neil deGrasse Tyson claims to be, what I can figure out is how he can believe that humanity is no different than the stars itself. Meaning, according to him, according to this Stardust theory, the difference between the stars and life, and complicated life, it's just time. It's just time. And if we're a product of only one star, of which we know there are trillions of variations and different versions of that same star, how can you conclude that nature wouldn't repeat itself? Because aren't you saying that we're just a product of nature? So if we're a product of nature, and by all scientific accounts, you know, nature repeats itself, right? So we should be repeated, and our capabilities should be repeated. Yet you're assuming, you know, or I'm assuming that you must be thinking in some pessimistic way that humanity will never ever be able to reach to another star. Because that's the only logical way that I can believe that you can believe in this Stardust theory and not believe in aliens. Because, as you understand from science, nature is consistent. But I have to say, there is one thing that Tyson got correct about physics, and it has to do with string theory. So let's listen in for a second.
Universe, what would be the dimensions we are unaware of?
Any dimension higher than the 3 that we're familiar with, or the actual 4 that we're embedded in. We live in a 4-dimensional world. And that might sound a little flaky or freaky, but consider the following fact. You have never met someone at a place unless it was also at a time. And you have never met someone at a time unless it was also at a place. It may be that these 4 dimensions are manifest to us, but that in fact we are embedded in a higher dimensional space. And string theorists on the frontier of this exercise are hypothesizing at least 10 dimensions to account for everything we see in the universe, even if we do not directly measure those dimensions themselves.
So even though he is right about this, the reason why I want to showcase this is because there's something happening with this tribe called this Dogon people who have been on this planet Earth for at least 5,000 years, since ancient Sumerians and since the ancient Egyptians. They have not been contacted by any other society since the 1920s, when these French anthropologists first started studying this culture. So, since you, Mr. deGrasse Tyson, is so correct about this, string theory, hidden dimensions, not hidden dimension idea, then explain to me, how is it that this primitive culture knew this already? Let's listen in.
They actually believe in their legend that their world is made out of 11 eggs, and 4 of those eggs are cracked open. And maybe not everybody's familiar with this, but for the physicists and the scientists who are aware of this, there is a theory out there called string theory that postulates that the entire universe basically vibrates in a string of 11 different dimensions. And 4 of those dimensions are open.
And then to add to that, right, and I don't know if Mr. Tyson is aware of this evidence, but these same Dogon people who we just showcased might have been aware of this, hidden dimensional reality that we're, string theorists are postulating. The same people believe that their gods came from the Sirius star system. And they also said that the Sirius star system had 3 stars. But not just that, they also added the detail that the 3rd star, they called the Potolo, which is the same word for seed. Po is the same word that they use for seed. They basically called the star a very, very dense object. And then only in 1994, did NASA discover, by observing the perturbations that were happening with the other 2 Sirius stars, that based on these periodical perturbations, there had to be a 3rd star, likely a white dwarf that is highly dense and not very visible, exactly as the Dogon people explain. So we have 2 different things, talking about string theory and talking about the knowledge of the Sirius star system, that a culture that claims that their gods were these frog-faced people that came from the sky, no different than perhaps the Anunnaki from, Sumerians, or perhaps the Hopi Indians talking about the lizard-faced people. I don't know if you know about that evidence, but these are things that are being reported with our ancient cultures, and it's being, I think, verified through a form of evidence, because you can test this. When the people of Dogon was reported saying that there's 3 stars and Sirius star. And then you can look at the academic journals and you can see that in 1994 was the first time that NASA started postulating in the possibility of there being a 3rd star in Sirius star system. So this is something that can be verified. Is this not a form of evidence? And if it's not evidence, then I would like Mr. deGrasse Tyson to please explain, how in the hell did the Dogon people figure out about the Sirius star system? How the hell did they know about string theory? But then again, we do know that Mr. deGrasse Tyson wasn't always correct. Let's listen into what he thinks about cell phones and radiation.
The variations in your measurement will occasionally give you a positive signal, as well as a negative signal. If that positive signal is the idea that maybe A causes B, in this case, cell phones cause cancer, a paper gets written about that result, and then people get concerned that cell phones might cause cancer or power lines might cause cancer. This goes way back. And so, in fact, if you look at the full spate of these studies, even those that they thought not to publish because it was not a positive effect, there's some cases where, in fact, there's less cancer. And so these are the phenomenon of a no result.
All right, so as you can see, even the experts can be wrong. So look, this wasn't supposed to be personal against Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's just that he's a speakerhead for critical thinking. And this channel is just trying to make sure that we keep the truth in check, because as everybody knows, the truth will set you free. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. We have an incredible, I'm talking incredible episode. It's, I've been doing this for a while, for like 7-10 years, and I have to say that I've never discovered a piece of evidence or a piece of information that I've seen unlock more doors it's like finding a hidden key to a treasure of knowledge, and I really want to share this with you guys. It has to do with ley lines, it has to do with megalithic structures, and it has to do with reptilians as well. So please tune in. Please tell your friends about the show if you have not, or if you have not subscribed. I will leave a link above. And once again, thanks for joining me. This is Felipe Osario, signing out.